Are we live? Good. Yo, what is up? What a week it has been for Cowboys fans. And I'm talking to Cowboys fans specifically because y'all answered my poll earlier and y'all were like, we want to see Cowboys content tonight. Well, there's a lot of it. There's plenty to talk about. But as you can tell from me showing up in my pajamas again, we're going to keep it to the hottest of the hot topics. We are going to talk about something that actually popped up after I sent out the poll, and we're going to talk about this conversation that happened between. Hold on. Sorry, my phone decided to play my own stream. But yeah, we're going to talk about this conversation that happened between Michael Irvin and Jerry Jones, what they had to say about Micah Parsons, my takes on it. And then we are going to still go through my training camp camera roll because that was the thing that got the most votes. So I'll show y'all what I got videos of and see what y'all think. What's up, Sin City? Good to see you. So yeah, we'll start off with that. Before I get too deep into that, just give me a second to at least give a shout out to Paige Beckers for breaking the WNBA rookie record for most points in a game. She is killing it. I think the Wings as a team have already moved on to like next season and trying to build for next season. But Paige Beckers is giving them quite the foundation and definitely giving people something to look forward to in terms of attracting free agents. So on that note, let me play this intro and we'll get into the good stuff.
Queen bitch, supreme bitch, I'ma stay that bitch.
All right. So, assuming y'all haven't been sleeping all day or under a rock, you know that earlier today, Michael Irvin posted a clip. It was a clip of Jerry Jones telling him, Michael, why don't you grab Micah and come over here and let us work this out? And so it basically led all of Cowboys Nation to rush over to Michael Irvin's YouTube page at 5 p.m. Eastern today to see what all they talked about in this conversation. Now, most of the conversation was about the documentary, which is pretty dope if you haven't seen it. But a good part of it, about half of the video, was about the contract talks with Micah Parsons. Now, I will say there is one connection between the doc and the situation involving Micah Parsons in that we're seeing a certain side of Jerry Jones. We are seeing a certain side of him that doesn't really like to put up with bullshit, kind of has an ego, is kind of really willing to go as far as he needs to go in order to get what it is that he wants to get. I haven't watched the entire documentary yet, but the last episode that I watched was episode 3, where they start talking about his ties with Jimmy Hoffa, which for anyone who doesn't know who Jimmy Hoffa is or what he's about, essentially an organized crime boss. Now, one of the things that people keep pointing to is that, Jerry Jones ends up not making this deal, this arrangement with Jimmy Hoffa to buy the, at the time, San Diego Chargers. Cool. But what people seem to keep skimming over is that he had already received a loan from the Teamsters, which was one of Jimmy Hoffa's legal fronts, in order to fund pizza parlors. So it's not like, oh, he could have worked with Jimmy Hoffa, but his dad discouraged him. Like, no, Jerry Jones was working with an organized crime boss. And then he almost pulled that relationship into NFL ownership. Jerry Jones was a hustler. Jerry Jones, as a matter of fact, have y'all ever heard Element by Kendrick Lamar? Because, like, Jerry Jones had to be talked out of not borrowing millions of dollars from an organized crime boss in order to buy an NFL team. He was really willing to risk his life for this shit. And when you consider that in the situation where he was just like almost like drunk himself to death, like drunk himself into heart arrhythmia, it definitely is giving. I'm willing to die for this shit. Might take a life for this shit. Go eye for an eye for this. Um, and the eye for an eye component seems to be coming into play with the situation, not in a violent sense, of course, but in the sense that based on what we heard in this conversation between Jerry Jones and Michael Irvin, the point that they seem to be at now seems to be more about ego than money. I think for the longest time, Cowboys Nation has been thinking that the issue was that Jerry Jones and Micah Parsons could not agree on a dollar amount, or possibly some other more intricate components of the contract. But if you listen to how Jerry Jones starts talking about David Millietta, it definitely is giving, who does this guy think he is? Why does he think he's important? Why does he think that he can come in and dictate how things are supposed to go? And so that's kind of the section that I have pulled up for you guys. I'm gonna play it. We'll listen to it. We'll talk about it. Um, but at the end of the day, it's like there's nothing any of us can actually do about this. We all have our opinions. Speaking of, I pinned a comment in the chat. So if you are in the chat, from what I understand, a lot of people are watching the stuff on their TVs now. I get it. But if you do have it in YouTube, pull up your phone and you are in the chat. Definitely look at that pinned comment and tell me who you think is at fault for holding up the Micah Parsons contract negotiations. I think for a lot of time, people thought it was Jerry Jones. But now we have reason to think it could be David Mulligetta. But let's go ahead and get into this clip. What's up, JV? Good to see you.
He's got 3 years. At some point, somebody has to have the say over the other. At some point, it has to be that way. My job is managing the check. Okay? Micah's got to do the playing. Where's the least important part of this whole equation we're talking about? What is the least incremental part of the whole equation? The attorney or the agent. Okay, he works for Micah. Okay, he's not the principal here in any way. In any way, they're in here to make their percentage. They're in here to basically, yes, advise Micah. Come over to the office and I'll show you exactly what I offered Micah. We got it in the back. It's with all written down, everything to go. Come down and look at that.
I'm gonna get over there and see that.
You can sure look at it. You can sure absolutely look at it. Here's my entire point. Our point. Who is it that basically says this is ultimately recognizing we're trying to come together for an agreement, but absolutely, who is it that can go with it? And so the facts are, I don't know that I've ever been around. I've never tried to buy anything. I've never tried to do anything that I actually was going to bring all of the services and somebody else was going to do all the money. But because the in-between guy wasn't exactly the guy that I had fit there, that kept you from doing the deal.
Right.
That's exactly what's happening here. So many times in this industry, you have a different agenda going on with agents. A different agenda. They're playing a game. You tell me, are agents incentivized to not only get the most for that player, but they're trying to get what? They're trying to get other players because they got a high agenda for that player.
Right.
All right, so we're going to pause it right there. We'll come back to it if we need to. But Jerry said some very important things in that clip for anyone who's been following the situation. And we'll start from the last thing he said and kind of work our way backwards. But, one of the last things that he mentioned is that agents apparently have their own agenda. Now, I was in a Twitter space with Nick's earlier. Shout out to your guy, Nick's, on Twitter. Also on YouTube. They're doing some great things in the game reaction YouTube. But he said agents often have their own agenda. Now, this is something that's actually been talked about by other players, other owners, other coaches. And it's essentially a situation where in the NFL, it's not necessarily an official thing on paper that needs to happen. But what keeps happening with these deals is that if there's a player who's up for a deal, they are definitely encouraged to sign based on what their market value is. And so if there's a player who's like, you know what, I don't need 30 million, 40 million, I'll take, this other lesser amount. Their agent or other people in their camp might say, no, you can't do that because of your age, because of your position, because of your stats, because of your accolades. And you put all those things together, this is what you're supposed to be worth. And if you don't accept this amount, you'll mess up the market for everybody else. That was something that came into play with CD's contract. That was something that came into play with Dak's contract. It wasn't talked about as much because neither of them did anything like request a trade, but it is something that people were kind of talking about when they were saying like, okay, what should the number be? And it was like, well, because it's CD Lamb, it needs to be this. If he doesn't fight for at least this, then it messes up the market for wide receivers. So sometimes when these negotiations start, players are not simply thinking about themselves and what it is that they want or feel like they need. They're thinking, oh, somebody said there's an echo. Let me know if that's better. Sorry, there was a button I forgot to push. But yeah, so essentially it's not always them thinking about what they feel like they want or feel like they need. It could be them not wanting to mess things up for um for the rest of the guys in their position in the NFL. So that is something that they think about. So when it comes to agents having their own agenda, it's not always just about them getting as much money as they can get. Sometimes it is about, okay, what does the market say? How will this affect other players in the same position, right? How will this affect other agents who are representing players like this, right? Because agents are capped at 3%. Agents are capped at 3%. So they do kind of have to consider that as well. Um, thank you, JV. I appreciate that. So now going back before that, he says he's never been in a situation where he's been trying to purchase a product or a service and it's the middleman who gets in the way. And then he says that's exactly what's happening now. And I feel like that's significant. I don't know how so many people have glossed over it because there are so many conversations going on right now about like, well, what do you think is going on? What do you think is the issue? Jerry Jones has literally said that's exactly what happened now. And if you watch this entire conversation, he talks about how he was promising Micah a very high amount of guaranteed money and how he was promising Micah that he'd become the highest paid non-quarterback in the league, right? So based on that information, we kind of know that it had to have been something in the 40 million a year range. Otherwise, Jerry Jones is just a liar. And Jerry Jones might be a lot of things. I don't think he's like a bald face liar. You know what I'm saying? Like I can't think of too many situations where he's just been like a bald face liar like that. So it kind of leads me to believe like, okay, at least the offer was on the table. But then my question is, all right, was it in writing? Was it in legal writing? Did you just say this and try to get Micah to commit? Or did you actually put this on paper? Because if the issue is actually Micah Parsons' agent holding up the situation, what is the problem? Like, if you're this man's agent and he is about to become the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL, why, as his agent, would you not want that? What the hell is in the contract? What the hell is happening between these two men that is holding this up? As a matter of fact, what the hell is happening between these three men? Because Jerry says that it's the agent that's holding things up, but then Micah is posting things suggesting that he's hurt about this whole situation, suggesting that he's upset with the team, taking references to the Dallas Cowboys out of his social media bios. Why would he do that if the only situation is that the agent is holding up the progress, that the agent is stopping them from moving forward? So I hear what Jerry Jones is saying, but I'm just like, and like I said, I don't think he's a liar. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I do think if you're going to say something like that, you need to give us more details, Jerry, because like you say something like that and it just leads to more questions. It's like, okay, if you're saying it's just an agent, then why can't Micah have another attorney or somebody like that review it and the agent still get his 5%? Agent or Micah goes back to playing and everybody's happy, hopefully happy. Um, or if it is just an agent, has the agent said what is holding up the progress? Has the agent actually said, hey, this is the issue that I have with this entire situation and why I don't like how it's going? Like, we just need more. We just need more. So all that being said, I don't blame the people who think that this is kind of theatrics. It is very dramatic. The timing of all of it is ridiculous. You know, you have preseason, you have this documentary coming out, then you have this Micah Parsons drama all before the season begins. I know they better win that game the season opener, because if you do all this and get your ass beat, fans are gonna be pissed. But even then, it's something Jerry Jones has been through before. Like, I can say fans are gonna be pissed, but like when it comes, even when it comes to fans being pissed off, even when it comes to the team losing, Jerry Jones has been through worse. Jerry Jones has been through being hated, people not wanting him to have the team, not being able to sell tickets. He's dealt with a 1-15 season. So what can you really threaten him with to where it's like, ooh, if they don't lose this game, Jerry's gonna be like, been there, bounce back, it's good. Ooh, we not showing up to the games, been there, bounce back, we good. Ooh, you might lose the best player in the NFL. Been there, bounce back, still good. So, like, what do you really say to this man at this point? To where it's like, yeah, if you don't handle this properly, XYZ is gonna happen. There's literally nothing that you can say to him that he hasn't been through before and worked through and figure out how to get past. So that definitely would contribute to a man's arrogance. It doesn't make fans feel better, but it does kind of give you some perspective when it comes to, hmm, why is he acting like this? Brian Bradford says somebody lied. Ryan Clark just said that Micah's agent didn't say contract up the ass. I kind of had a feeling when I heard that quote that he didn't say that. Jerry Jones likes to cuss. Once again, if you haven't seen the documentary, just know Jerry Jones likes to cuss. Like, and a lot of his sayings and colloquialisms involve words like ass, and I think that was one of them. But once again, when it comes to details of this story leading to more questions, okay, if he didn't say that, what did he say? Is this Jerry Jones being dramatic and exaggerating, or did he say something disrespectful that happened to not be those exact words? Um, so I'm curious, and I don't know if we'll hear more. I don't know if David Mulligetta is the type to be like, oh, okay, you gonna go on YouTube? I know some people with the YouTube too. I don't know if Micah Parsons is the type to say, you know what, we got a special episode of The Edge coming tomorrow. I don't know. I all the rules of engagement for this situation have been broken. I have no idea what to expect. But Jane Slater believes that she does. I'm gonna read you all the tweet that she put out, and I haven't read this for myself yet. I found myself in Nix's space as he was halfway through it. But here's what she said. She says, I don't have a crystal ball, but here's how I expect this to play out. Here soon, Micah will talk to Jerry because Jerry ain't trading him. This is facts. Micah is a competitor and he ain't sitting or interested in losing game checks. The other thing likely wearing on him, playing and getting hurt without security. Of course. Jerry will appreciate the win, so to speak. He's been expecting it. Jones knows he has him for 3 more years if he wants. Jones secretly respects Micah's mettle, though, a worthy opponent in his favorite game of deals. Alas, he will meet Micah again in the middle somehow and then make it look like they both won the deal. They will laugh, shake hands, and hug tight. Everyone will get what they wanted, but once again, we will write how much harder both sides made it than it needed to be as the world turns. Um, this could very much be the perspective of Jerry Jones. He definitely seems like the type to look at this as like, um, just part of making the deal, part of negotiations, part of the show of it all. It's like, hey, this is just me going back and forth with an opponent. He's gonna play hardball. I'm gonna play hardball. He's gonna use social media. I'm gonna use social media. He's gonna use YouTube. I'm gonna use YouTube. And then at the end of the day, we both want Micah Parsons on the field playing and helping us get to a championship. So at the end of the day, we're gonna all get what we want, but it's just, we're gonna go at it in the meantime. And then you also got to think about things like the fact that CD released a docu-series. I I'm not gonna lie. I watched the first episode, but I haven't been back to CD's YouTube channel since. Um, but it just goes to show that there is some kind of value in this type of content because essentially, at least that video and possibly subsequent videos were about CD's holdout and what that led to for him, what he learned, what the experience was like, some of the behind the scenes situations and conversations that happened. So, there is potential for Micah Parsons to take this situation and do the same thing with it. To, sometime later this season or next year be like, hey, especially considering his partnership with Bleacher Report, like, yo, I'm going to release a series of videos that give you the behind the scenes on what really happened between me and Jerry Jones. You're going to hear about the secret conversations. You're going to hear my perspective, his perspective, so on and so forth. So, yeah. JV says, I believe if he tags Micah Parsons, he's leaving. Well, if he tags Micah Parsons, that's not an option. But that is something else that he talked about in this conversation with Michael Irvin. He talked about the fact that when he was in basically a similar situation with Dak Prescott, how he ended up tagging Dak twice, and then they decided on a number and went from there. So even that is something that when Jerry Jones talks about it, it's like, yeah, I've been there. Um, and there are some people who are like, well, he's never had anyone request a trade before. Um, but it kind of depends on how seriously he's taking that trade request, because he keeps referring back to the Emmitt Smith situation, which the Emmitt Smith situation was different. Emmitt Smith was already out of contract and had the option to go to other teams, but they weren't willing to offer him. This is per Emmitt Smith's interview that happened on the Pivot a few years ago. They weren't willing to make a ridiculous offer that Jerry Jones couldn't match. One of the coaches that was quoted actually told Emmitt Smith, like, yo, if I offer you that, I got guys who are in my running back room right now who are going to look at me like, yo, you offering him that, but you couldn't offer me XYZ. And they were like, I can't do that. So just going back to that whole point about, like, sometimes teams do have to consider what other people on their team have been offered, what the market says in terms of what NFL players are supposed to get. That is definitely a thing. Willie says, Jerry doesn't need to put the tag on him. He needs to give him what he wants and put an end to this mess. Well, if you let Jerry Jones tell it, it sounds like he's put that offer on the table, and the agent is messing it up. The agent is causing problems and holding up the whole process. So we might hear more in the morning, sometime later this week. I don't know. The Cowboys have a game tomorrow, and we're talking about Jerry Jones and Michael Irvin on YouTube. Good God, this is wild. I This rapper I like listening to, his name is Smino, and he has a line in one of his songs, and he's like, I'll never leave the squad on God. I'm Michael Irvin. And so every time I see Michael Irvin do something with Jerry Jones, or do something like for the Cowboys or involved with the Cowboys, or just insert himself in Cowboys business, that is what I think of. Oh, goodness. He is never leaving the squad. He is a Dallas Cowboy literally for life, forever. Him and Jerry Jones are that tight. But on that note, if y'all have any other comments or questions about the Micah Parsons contract negotiations or anything that came up during this video, feel free to throw it in the chat. We can always come back to it. But in the poll, which did not have the option for this conversation on it because at the time it was much less relevant. But in the poll, y'all said y'all wanted to see some of my training camp videos. So I think they are finally done uploading to Google Drive. So we'll look at some of those and we'll see what we got and what we can talk about from that. Let's see. So I didn't label any of these videos, so I'm just going to go through them. Let's see what's the best way to open this up. Can y'all see that? Is that too small? Oh, there we go. What is this? I think this is just some random jokes in the beginning. So I'm gonna tell y'all what I was looking for when I was watching the drills is I was looking for physicality, because that seems to be one of the issues that has been lacking in preseason games. And one of the things that Brian Schottenheimer talked about bringing to the practices. So honestly, that's what I was looking for. And I don't remember if this was from day one or day two. What up to Rowdy? But I was really just like, okay, are they going to be physical? And of course, they're going to be physical against pads. But that was one of the things that I was kind of like, all right, we see the drills. We see that you are practicing tackling, but practicing hitting a moving target is different than practicing hitting a stationary pad, right? So that's one of the things that I was just looking at to see, okay, what are they practicing? How are they practicing? And they did practice tackling. This is something else that's random. Maybe I should have labeled these. I think these are all from day one though. So more drills. Question for y'all in the chat: how many of y'all have ever actually been to a Cowboys practice? Like whether it's training camp in Oxnard or one of these training camp events that happens in Frisco. And this is the D line that we're watching, by the way. So all these drills are skills that they want the D line to be working on. And that was one rep of that. So I'll go back to the beginning. Who is that? I can't see the number. But they're weaving through high cones. And then they're looping around a defender. The only thing that I can think of that would be looping around a blocker. I mean, the only thing I can think of that would be practicing is like maybe a situation where they are successful in disrupting the O-line and then have to double back in case the running back or someone gets past and they have to go back to where the play is. So in this one, we see Mozzie. It looks like, is that Osa lined up for the drill? So, okay, this was a drill, I'm gonna be honest, I did not understand. I recorded it, but I did not understand because I'm like, okay, it looks like they're taking on two blockers, but why are these two blockers like breaking apart before the defender gets there? So I'm gonna be honest with y'all, some of the drills I understand, but this is one of the ones that I was looking at that I was like, okay, what exactly are they doing here? So if any of y'all know, feel free to chime in the chat and let me know if y'all know what this drill is supposed to do. I haven't asked anybody else like who might know about it yet. So okay, I think this is where we get to some of the scrimmage stuff. I think this is from day one though. Like, oh, what the hell was that? That is a 3-second video. I must have turned my camera on accident. All right, next. Okay, so this is the video that a lot of people saw on Twitter. So this was actually before practice started. This was Osa, and he was working with Toya. So Osa was doing the drills by himself at first, and then Toya came up, and Osa started assisting Toya. Which, if you've ever watched Toya, you know he's got pretty good potential when it comes to being a part of this defense. Mostly a good scheme fit. He's got good traits. He's got a quick first step. He's explosive off the line. It's just little things that he needs to work on in terms of his technique, pad level, and getting used to where his hands are supposed to go. Because sometimes people are like, oh, he just needs to be more aggressive, yada, yada, yada. But like there is actually a specific technique that they are supposed to use in order to be successful against blockers, right? So just simply going in wild and just like being aggressive and being as forceful as possible is not enough. You want your hands in the right place. You want your pad level to be right. You want your footwork to be right, so on and so forth. And that combination of things can make you more effective than simply just being quote unquote strong or quote unquote aggressive. And so, yeah, Toya has some strengths in terms of, like I said, the quick first step, the explosiveness off the line. He's got some good lateral ability, but he's really got to work on. Right now, he's in a situation where he's better as a run defender than as like a pass defender. And so that's why I like seeing him put in extra work, because it's like he was a 7th rounder. Toya was a 7th rounder. So I don't think there's any misunderstanding about where he is and the fact that he needs work. Like sometimes I see people online going hard on Toya, like as if there's some misconception that he's like ready to be like a starter, ready to be a star on the team. Like, no, I think people are excited about the potential, especially getting that potential from a 7th rounder. And the fact that he's like a good scheme fit. I think that's like pretty much the biggest difference between Toya and Mozzie right now, is that Toya has the traits to be a good fit for what seems to be Eberflus's scheme, whereas Mozzie seems to be having trouble picking up on the skills that he needs in order to be effective in an attack front. Mozzie's skills lend themselves to a different type of scheme. Mozzie was drafted for a different coach and a different scheme, whereas Toya seems to be a good fit for who's here now and what they're trying to implement. So that's all. Nobody's saying like, oh, he's ready. He's ready. He's like, No, he's got work to do, but we can be excited about the speed. We can be excited about the disruption. All right. Let's see. It looks like we're into day 2 videos now. So let's see what's next. I think this might have just been me waiting for something to happen. Oh yeah, this is Osa. I don't know what to call this. Although let me go back to the beginning. But he's doing something in terms of working with his hands and hand placement and reaction time. There's definitely a reaction time component to whatever this game is that he's playing. And I find it all fascinating. I know Osa's working on his speed, which is going to be very important in the Eberflus scheme. But it's just interesting to see them play like little games like that on the sideline. I call it a little game. It looks like a game to me. Okay, so then he starts talking to Eberflus. Now, what was interesting to me was for like how long they talked, because you don't really see Eberflus talking to any of the other players like that. And if you saw the interview that I did with Osa earlier this summer, he did talk about seeing himself as a leader on this team. But at that point, we kind of talked about him being a leader by example, about him, through his work ethic and the way that he approaches practice, showing that he is a good leader. But in this situation, we actually see him having a very extended conversation directly with the defensive coordinator, which, I mean, personally, I find that to be significant. There's also the fact that he was wearing a wristband that kind of looks like what quarterbacks wear whenever they have their little band on their arm that like is for plays, um, and so that was something that none of the other defensive players were wearing. None of the other defensive players had one of those. So there's definitely some sort of relationship between Osa and Eberflus. There's definitely something that Osa is being dependent on for in terms of leadership and responsibilities. It just hasn't been made clear. And I haven't seen any recent interviews with Eberflus where anybody might have even asked him about that, right? So I don't know if y'all have heard anything. Um, but if you have, feel free to put it in the chat and let me know if you've heard anything. But I haven't heard anything specifically about what it is that Osa's wearing on his arm, why he's talking so much with Eberflus, what his role is on the defense right now, especially with so many other starters being out for various reasons, including Micah Parsons. You know, so interesting. JV says, I believe with proper rotation with Solomon Thomas, Oso Odigizua will be all pro at 3 Tech this season. I would love that. I'm an Osa fan. Y'all know this. What I did not know was that so many of y'all love Osa as a leader. Cause like when I posted, not this one, but the video of him working with Toya and Thomas on Twitter, I just kind of posted it to be funny because I kept trying to get him doing the drill, but every time I turned on my camera, he would stop and start helping other people. But then, like, it's literally one of my most viewed posts of the year. And several people were like, oh, look at this. It's leadership. Oh, look at this. Osa is like helping out the other guys on the team, yada, yada, yada. Like, people are really into seeing the leadership side of Osa Odigizua. So I was like, cool. Good to know y'all appreciate this as much as I do. All right. So yeah, this is just a long ass video of them talking for a while. Let's see what's next. I know I got some. Oh, I know this. This is a random video. So there was a guy who by himself had a sign saying to fire Jerry, and he tried to start a fire Jerry chant, but it did not catch on. But he didn't bring a group with him. He was just by himself. So yeah. Sorry, guy. Nobody joined in. What's next? Is this? Okay. I'm just muting it because they play music the whole time. Nope, go back. They play music the whole time, and I don't want to get flagged. So let's see who we got there. It looks like we have Kyrie Elam closest to the camera. And I'm saving up money for a better phone, y'all, so I can give y'all like better content. My phone is old as fuck. So yes, the videos, especially when I was zoom in, they are blurry. I'm sorry. But I can tell that's Kyrie Elam closest to the camera. Everybody else, I'm not so sure. But I know for most of these reps, it was Kyer Elam on one side and Andrew Booth on the other side. Um, which yeah, they kind of split up who was targeted during practice. But if you hear those two names and those two names end up being your starters, especially in week one, I'm sure you know who is going to be most likely to be picked on between Kyer Elam and Andrew Booth. So part of the reason that I was glad that the defense was so close to us is because one of the biggest issues that I've had this entire preseason is with how much cushion our corners are giving. Now, a lot of times that ends up being a complaint against certain cornerbacks, but real talk, like all of them are giving a lot of cushion. Just some of them seem to be handling it better than others. Like Kyer seems to have the instincts for it mostly. He doesn't always execute perfectly, especially against the ones, but he seems to be one of the people who can, kind of handle it, figure it out. Andrew Booth, on the other hand, I don't like him in zone. I don't like him in zone. I don't like him giving that much cushion. Like, even if maybe it was a little bit less, because like the 5 to 7 yards, let's say theoretically, hypothetically, you do face a team and your attack front defense, Coach Eberflus, is effective against that team, and you're giving them trouble in terms of executing their run game. Even if you have a quarterback who's not that good and they end up being scared, they're going to take that 5 to 7 yards underneath every time if you give it to them, which if you have Andrew Booth in zone, the way that it's been set up, as we've seen it, you're giving it to him. So it just doesn't feel like a good long-term plan. Something needs to be adjusted there. And if it's not going to be the player, then it's going to have to be the formation. It's going to have to be the scheme. Like we can't just keep putting him out there in that same position and watching him, execute poorly and just be okay with it. And yes, Andrew Booth did have a very awesome play in that last game, and I'm happy for him. And he's one of those guys. Okay, think about Andrew Booth, at least from my perspective. Here's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing a guy who does have speed, he does have strength, he does know what he needs to do. The execution is just not always there. So that interception that he had, that was a situation where he was in close proximity with his target. But what we've seen when there's like more space is that there are times when he ends up going the completely wrong way. You put him up against a good route runner and he's going to completely miss. I don't even mean by a little bit. I don't even mean him being outrun. I mean, there have been times in practice where he's been lined up against George Pickens or CeeDee Lamb where he is going the wrong way. And that if you make him a starter, he is one of the people who's going to be going up against receivers who are of the caliber of CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. So that is my concern. I do feel like Andrew Booth brings several good things to the table, but that is something that he is 100% going to have to work on and be more effective at if this is how it's going to be set up by Eberflus. Or Eberflus has got to figure something out. But anyway, thanks for listening to my rant. We're going to get back to this particular video. I don't know what's about to happen because, like I said, I didn't label these and I haven't watched them since I recorded them. But it looks like we've got Kyer Elam closest to us, so let's see what happens. Okay, so that was a situation where Dak kept the ball. Cool. Hold on. I kind of want to see that again. Wait, did it go to the next video or is it playing the same one again? Let's see. So yeah, Dak pump fakes twice and then runs with it. Plays like that, it's really hard to tell how effective they actually are just because of the fact that nobody can touch Dak in these practices. So if he were going against people who could actually tackle him, would he have made it all the way to the end zone? I'm not so sure. Let's see what this one is.
It looks nice.
Okay, so in this one, we actually do have Andrew Booth here over closest to the screen. I can't tell who that is in the back. It looks like 2 something. Safety, is that Hooker? Not sure, but this is definitely Andrew Booth right here. All right, So the play went to the other side of the field, but that is one of the reps where I would at least prefer to see Andrew Booth kind of still sticking with his target. Like even if the play is going to the other side of the field, I feel like Booth should. This is just my opinion. This is me putting my coach hat on. I feel like Booth should still practice sticking to his target, just because that's something that he needs to practice doing. Like he doesn't need to take a rep off just because it's like, oh, the ball is going over there. Let's see what y'all are saying. Da, da. Nathan Thomas was getting beat by everyone. Yeah, if you see something on there, like call it out for sure. JV said that pick six solidified Boots to the 53-man roster. It seems that way. He's been getting reps with the ones, and it's like you got to put somebody on there. Everybody hurt, so he definitely deserves to be applauded and rewarded for that play. I just want to see him do more and do better. Like I said, I think he's got certain traits that lend themselves to it. He just needs to like lock in. Like I to be honest, I don't know what the issue is. I don't know if it's a mental thing. I don't know if it's literally a physical thing. So I can't really be like he just needs to lock in and he needs to lock in and do better. Whatever it takes for him to get better in that position, especially in zone, that's what he needs to lock in and do. Clement, what's up? Good to see you. I was trying to see how easy it is to make you a moderator. I don't know. YouTube is complicated, not really. But good to see you. Thanks for popping in. All right. So let's see what's next. All right. Once again, my camera is super shitty. I don't know who this is.
There you go.
Okay. So perfect example. So that was Booth next to us. Now, our defense is probably going to look very chaotic this year because they are running an attack front. So especially in situations where they're this close to the goal line, and the defense is backed up close to the goal line, and there's less space to work with it being that their job is to disrupt. Yeah, you are going to see what looks like DTs all over the place, edge rushers all over the place, linebackers all over the place, because all the things that they are supposed to be doing in order to disrupt, if they're on the line or do their whole cleanup and flow thing, if they're a linebacker, all of a sudden all of that is condensed into 10 to 20 yards. And so it looks like a hot mess sometimes. But let's go back to the beginning. So once it started playing, I could see that this was in the blue furthest to the left. That is Andrew Booth. And at least one of the DTs was Sam Williams. I can't tell who else is there, but let's see. All right, so that was a situation where I feel like not only for him, not only for Andrew Booth, but you can kind of question what was everybody doing? Like, why did Pickens have the ball and like nobody was able to do anything? It didn't seem like anybody was tracking him or aware of where he was going or whose responsibility it was to stop him, you know? I'm gonna let this play one more time. Can I put this in slow motion? I think I can. We'll do it 75% and see if anything stands out. All right. So, yes, that's Booth. And I'm trying to see what he's probably looking at. I'm trying to see, has Dak already let go of the ball at this point? Oh, yes. Wait, no, this is another video. Okay, so this was a run play. I wish I had gotten more of the beginning because there was definitely a handoff. He shoots to the outside. They do touch him, and I don't know if touches are supposed to count as tackles, and he just kept running. Let's see who touched him first. Sam is chasing him. It's definitely one of those situations where I feel like even if they were really tackling, Booth still would have missed him just because of the way he juked to his side. Clement says, I have a feeling that Joe Milton might start and good 3 quarters again tonight versus Atlanta. I hope that we get to see Phil Maffa, Malik Davis actually get running room from the what? Oh, Clement chimed in on the contract situation, said Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones are at fault for the impasse in Micah's contract difficulty. So, Clement, it sounds like you're not buying the story that it's the agent's fault. Because that's what Jerry Jones said. Jerry Jones said that the agent is the one who's holding everything up, that he's in the middle of everything. How's it going, Uncle Charles? Good to see you. JV said, are they still having to be touched twice? I'm not sure. I don't know the rules of this game that they play in practice. Let's see, one more time. I'm gonna go back and see if I can see when this handoff happens. I do like Sam's hustle though, I'll say that. Because it's like a lot of people kind of started jogging and Sam was like, no, I'm gonna try to beat you to the end zone. Not a terrible rep. Okay, so now we got Kyer Elam back on this side. Dak is scrambling, throws it to the other side. Receiver gets touched. Couldn't see who it is. One more time. And Sam was running with him again. So Sam has definitely shown some restraint in terms of not not hitting people, not being very physical. But what he is putting on tape is the fact that he has a propensity to keep up with whoever he's supposed to be watching. Oh, Clement finished his statement. He said, get running room from the backup O-line. Again, we will see limited action from the starters on both sides of the ball. I feel like we aren't prepared for Philly in 12 days. I'm with you on that one. I do not feel good about Philly. I know that we aren't prepared being conservative. Facts, dude. I haven't seen anything yet to give me confidence in how we're gonna look against Philly, especially with it being on a Thursday. So it's like we actually have less prep time than other teams. And it's like I know Philly has the same amount of prep time, but at least they're at home. Like the Cowboys have to factor like travel time in that, traveling for the first time with rookies who are going to be counted on to play. Whew. It's just a lot to deal with at the start of a season. JV says, what Cowboys starters are playing tonight? I don't believe any. Maybe Mozzie Smith and the CBs, and that's because of injury. Yeah, that sounds about right. In the press conference that Brian Schottenheimer did yesterday, he talked about, or I should say on Wednesday, depending on if you're counting, to me it's still Thursday. But in that press conference, Brian Schottenheimer talked about why he wasn't playing Dak. And I think some of the things that he said can apply to other starters, especially when it comes to things like just not wanting to risk injury or feeling like they're ready because they've played for so long, yada, yada, yada. So, yeah, I think in terms of starters, assuming that Mozzie is a starter, he'll probably get some playing time. The cornerbacks are definitely going to get some playing time. And then we still need to see all the running backs. So whoever ends up being the starting running back or the starting running backs, they're going to be playing. They're going to be playing. We just don't know exactly what they've decided in terms of rotation, if there's going to be a lead back, if it's going to be split evenly. We have no idea. I mean, for all their talk about, oh, it's going to be physical, there's going to be this run game, da da da, we're going to shove it up their ass. They haven't really given us a lot to go on in terms of what exactly that's going to look like. So, Jamie said, Clement trying to give us nightmares. I know, right? What's up, Oil 007? Um, I know, Clement. You're just giving your perspective. We get it. All we can really do it right now is just like trust Shoddy. He keeps insisting that the team is going to be prepared. They're going to be physical. They're going to be able to run the ball. That they've got a plan. That they're not showing everything. So it's like, all right, show us. And Shoddy's been around the team long enough to know that if they don't show up, Cowboys Nation is going to have something to say about it. He is not going to enjoy the media after that. Let's see. What do we have next? Anything? Okay, I think this might be one of the last videos. I think this is from... So basically, there was this whole group of people that was like shouting Toya's name the entire game. Like, this dude has a fan club in Dallas already. And after the game, he walked over to that section and he ends up taking one of their phones to do like a group selfie with their phone, which I'm sure they appreciated. I don't know who these people are. I don't know where they came from. But they love them some Jay Toya. And when I say they were screaming his name the entire game, like, I mean, people were turning around and looking at them like, oh my God, are y'all okay? But yeah, he did wave at them during practice, and then he came over afterwards and took a picture with them. So, he's being nice to the fans, showing them some love. Seems to be enjoying the attention that he's getting, not in like a stuck up or conceited kind of way, but just being nice to the fans. So it was a cool little moment. And yeah, that was the last video from my camera roll. I'm really bad at taking videos of things. So that's why I'm usually not one of the people who's like, let me post all the best moments to Twitter. I'm like, I'll get random things and they'll either turn out to be important or they won't. All right. So any other comments or questions about either Micah's contract, um, or anything from training camp, or anything that we expect to see in the preseason game, or anything from the documentary? I'll tell y'all what I'm looking for in the preseason game. I'm gonna still be watching the defense, just because that's what I've been paying the most attention to, basically ever since Eberflus was like, "Oh yeah, this is an attack front." I have been really keeping my eye on that just to see like how does that trickle down. Because at first it started with me just watching the trenches. Like I said, I'm a trenches girl, especially this year. Um, so at first I was like, okay, how are the DTs going to adapt to this expectation of being an attack front defense? Which a lot of them, they seem to be adapting well. I think there was always an expectation that Osa was going to look good in the scheme. Sam is back. He seems to be a good fit for this scheme. Um, it's just a few of them that don't quite have the disruptive elements down. And that's really the most important part when it comes to an attack front, is that the defensive tackles are disruptive. Like in general, when people think of just defensive tackles, they think about things like holding up blocks, keeping linebackers clean, yada, yada, yada. But for an attack front, those things are not nearly as important as creating disruption. They're not nearly as important as things like throwing off the timing of the quarterback, impacting which lane the running backs take, so on and so forth. And part of that is because what the linebackers have to do. in an attack front defense, the linebackers are basically reading off of the DTs. So if the DTs are doing something that they're not supposed to do, it doesn't matter if you're keeping the linebackers clean. You're doing something you're not supposed to do. So you're going to throw off what the linebackers then have to do, right? So that's why, for anybody who follows me on Twitter, why I've been kind of like, yes, Mozzie has skills. Mozzie is a strong dude. He's just not doing what he needs to do in this particular defense. Um, and that's even why, if he were to be traded, which would be a complicated situation because of guaranteed money and so on and so forth, but if he were to be traded, would it suck to lose Mozzie? Yes. But if it were the type of trade that put him with a team whose scheme was a better fit for him, and the Cowboys in turn got someone who was super talented but was better at attack front, it could end up being a win-win-win-win for everybody, the two teams and the two players, right? That is something that could, in theory, absolutely work out. But there haven't even been any rumors of that, so I don't know what to expect on that front. But I will say that for the most part, outside of the Mozzies of the world and, some other people who have a few things to work on, for the most part, it does seem like the guys who are expected to be starting as defensive tackles are equipped to handle that task of being disruptive, being quick, throwing off timing. And the linebackers, like people have been talking about the linebackers like all off season. The linebackers are more than prepared to come through and clean up afterwards and, either take on the running back in whatever lane they choose, or be part of the defense that ends up responding to whatever the quarterback decides to do, whether they tuck and run, throw the ball, so on and so forth. Because that's one of the things about an attack front. You throw off the quarterback's timing, but you also force them to have to make a choice. And so there are a few things that you can hope for, which is that, the quarterback is rattled and they make the wrong choice. They start making mistakes. But at the end of the day, like quarterbacks have a few options. They're either going to hand the ball off, they're going to throw it, or they're going to keep it. So the question is just like when and where. Um, can you force a quarterback to, instead of trying to go for big explosive plays, try to play it safe and keep the passes underneath? Like even something like that can end up being a win over time for the defense if you're just like, nah, if you want to make it to the end zone, you're going to have to do it with these itty bitty chunk plays because we're not going to give you time to throw it down the field. So little things like that can end up being like very impactful. And then, like I was talking about earlier with the cornerbacks, it's just really felt like entirely too much cushion. And so I really just want to see what they end up doing with that. Oh, there was one time I saw this in one rep on day one of the practices where they did, and I hope I'm not calling this the wrong thing because I want to say it's called collision coverage, but I'm like, that sounds like a component of car insurance. But it's basically like when you have your defensive line, right? And then if you think about where cornerbacks usually are lined up on wide receivers, if they're playing like press man, right? Instead of putting corners there, you put linebackers there. And it's basically so that the linebackers can be disruptive on a pass play. And it kind of helps the cornerbacks in a way because the wide receivers have to adjust or they get held up at the line, so on and so forth. And so I think that's called, it might, I'm like, I feel like that's called collision coverage, but then my brain is like, no, that is wrong. But whatever it is, linebackers at the line lined up on receivers and being disruptive when they take off. I did see that. I only saw it one time. I saw it one time. So I don't know if it's something that they don't plan on using or something that they don't want to show a lot. But I do think when it comes to helping out receivers like Andrew Booth, who are still adjusting to zone, it could be an effective tool. It could be something that turns out to be like a really good tool in the toolbox to be like, all right, we're going to cause this little bit of disruption at the line. And that should affect the timing enough for corners who are still adjusting to zone to be able to come in and do their thing. Da-da-da. Rose says, Jazz, hope you're doing okay. It's been a week, fam. It's been a week. I am doing okay. But I won't lie, it's been a week. But I can do is keep going. My following is like actually starting to grow. So I was like, you know what, I should show up. And for those who aren't like in the loop, my dog passed away yesterday. it was sudden. Like he was a young boy, healthy boy. Um, and so my dog has been living in Austin with my ex, but I do get to see him sometimes. I've actually gotten to see him a couple of times recently. I got to see him on my birthday. I got to see him this past weekend. But apparently, like, there's this condition that dogs can develop, and it's like a really sudden thing where their stomach gets twisted and they get bloated and can't breathe and they die. And there's not really any signs or symptoms that you can catch for it. Um, so that happened yesterday. And that was part of the reason I didn't do any content yesterday because I was just like emotionally drained. And I went to practice because, like, one, when I'm grieving, I tend to throw myself into my work. Anybody who's been following me since the beginning, you might remember when my father passed away and I was putting out like 3 or 4 episodes a week. Um, Yay, one of my lights died. um, but so yeah, that's one thing. And then two, I was just like, yeah, if I can just like chill with some people I'm cool with, have a drink, watch some football, maybe it'll help me feel better. But I definitely was not trying to go live yesterday. So that's why I'm here today. But then today marks 4 years since the death of my father. So that's been kind of on my mind a little bit. But it's probably one of the first years that didn't ruin the whole month for me. Because the part of the story about my father passing that I don't tell a lot is that, like, um, my dad would always call me at midnight on my birthday. And so in 2021, the year that he passed, like, I didn't get the call at midnight. Um, but shortly after midnight, my stepmom calls and she's like, hey, your dad's in the hospital. He's really sick. He's non-responsive. And um, never was able to talk to him again. He spent a few weeks in the hospital and eventually passed. And so, like, for years, it's been hard for me to like celebrate my birthday or to not be in a bad mood for the entire month of August. And so this is probably one of the first years in a long time where I'm just like, I found myself laughing again. Like I found myself like having like a really good time with content again. Like if you saw the live I did from the car, talking about the documentary, like I was just having fun. I was just talking shit, which I haven't done fully in such a long time. So if y'all notice a different tone in my content moving forward, it's really just me kind of learning to have fun again. Um, and it's like there was like a short period of time where it wasn't affecting me as much. I think for probably like the past year or two, one of the reasons it's and sorry I'm like getting like real personal and we're supposed to be talking cowboy shit. I'm sorry. But probably for the past year or two, shit's just been hard. And so it's just like when you're going through that much stuff in life where it's like you're losing friends, financially things are hard. You have this big move. My relationship with my ex changed and then ended. Just so much going on. And then these are all things that like in the past I would have leaned on my dad on. And I'm just going through it and feeling like I didn't really have hardly anybody to lean on. Like I have friends and stuff, but like it wasn't the same. And so probably for like the past couple years, like shit's just been kind of weird with me on and off. Like some days were good, but like for the most part, it's just like been in a really weird place. And it's really just been like the past couple of weeks, I've been finally able to get back to the point where it's just like, all right, shit's funny again. And I feel comfortable talking my shit again. And it's like, oh, I actually have confidence again. Like, look at me feeling good about myself. like, um, yeah, so Clement says, saying my dad passed away day after his birthday. Oh man, I'm sorry. I can only imagine. Like before this happened, had somebody told me that like, a situation can happen and you'll be literally grieving for years, or that like you can suffer a bout of depression that can literally go on for years, or that like depression and anxiety can derail you for years, I'd have been like, what? Nah, you tripping. Cause like I'd never encountered that before. I had dealt with depression before, but it lasted like a few weeks at the most. I had never been in a situation where it's just like years on and off, just like anxiety, depression, grief, trauma, just back to back bullshit. Just couldn't seem to like, I don't know, find the light at the end of the tunnel or nothing. And like it literally got to the point where I'd literally be asking my friends, like, yo, does this ever end? Like, can I ever pull myself out of this? Like, anyway. Sorry for the derailment. I'm glad y'all love me enough to like stick around through it. Um Royal, thanks for stopping through. I'll see you later. Um so back to Cowboys coverage. I haven't decided yet what I'm gonna cover tomorrow. I've been writing a lot too, so that's part of it. So I don't know what I'm going to cover tomorrow. I have been thinking about doing live reactions during the game. And part of that is because, like I said, my audience is growing. And so one of the things that you don't want to do is when the YouTube algorithm starts noticing you and sending people your way and they start subscribing, you don't want to slow down. So even though, yes, I'm tired and I have a lot going on, I'm still trying to show up. Um, so I was thinking about like, it might be fun to do game day reactions just to show up, be live while the game is on and talk to you guys. I just don't know if I have a big enough audience for it. I would hate to do that and it'd be like one person who's watching and they're not even like active in the chat. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm kind of still thinking like, okay, is that something that I want to do? So we'll see. Um, but yeah, radio show is coming back next week. So I'll be doing that on Tuesday. If I'm not covering the Wings on Sunday, I'll be back to covering the Wings by Wednesday. So I'm going to cover their last few games of the home season or of the regular season, their last few home games of the regular season. I'll be covering that for sure. And then while I'm doing that, I'll still be at least doing Cowboys content. So covering their press conferences, so on and so forth. And then sharing the articles that I write to Twitter and whatnot. And then, yeah, as the opportunities arise, I'll still be talking about the documentary. I'll still be talking about Shedeur Sanders, Caleb Williams. There's some legal shit going on with the NFL that I need to tell y'all about. I never told y'all about the new lawsuits against Shannon Sharp. I have a lot of stuff to roll out in terms of content. So keep those notifications on. If you are watching, make sure you are subscribed. You turn your notifications on. Share this video with someone who you think might appreciate it. And please hit that like button before you leave. I'm going to get out of here so I can make sure and get to work in the morning. But thank you all for watching. This has been another episode of Bitches Love Sports. I am your host, Jazz Monet, and I'm out.
You only think of us as a bitches when you're intimidated. Put it that way. I think
people look at a woman and she's an aggressive
saying.
woman who's out to get what she wants to get. You know what I'm saying? Ambitious, and they want to say, when a male is assertive, this is what he wants. He's looked at as a strong male, but yet when I get it, I'm a bitch.
Exactly.
And if that's what I gotta be, exactly, to get what I want and to make it somewhere, then I'll just be that.